some kind? Was
We've been at a lot of them.
Well, no, did she host one?
Yeah, we hosted one in the beginning of May. Alter did it the first year. It's called the Backyard Brew Fest, so we got it second year. Who's doing it next year?
Oh, it's rotating?
Yeah, it's a rotating fest.
God, who was that guy that did it?
Who's doing the Backyard Brew Fest next year?
I'm trying to think.
Who won?
Yeah, I'm trying to think. It's the guy that had that really good strawberry milkshake IPA. He came by himself. Was it Miskatonic? I think it's Miskatonic.
All right, welcome to Two Beers and a Podcast with Brad and Mike, two marketing guys with a love of great craft beer and the stories that go with them. I'm Brad Fruhoff, the word guy.
And I'm Mike Rattay, the visual guy. And this show is all about the experience of beer, from the label to the glass, from the brew house to the bar. Each week we feature two beers that we feel have something to say, or that we think worth saying something about.
And today we're out in Itasca, Illinois, talking to Lisa Greger, co-founder of Church Street Brewing, and Chase Ray, who's head of sales. Thank you guys for sitting down with us. And just so those of you listening at home, this is a brew day. There's brewing things happening. So there's going to be possibly some background noise. We'll try to work with that as best we can. So let's start with what beer are we drinking?
This is our Heavenly Hellas.
Okay.
This was, cheers. I think Lisa knows the history of this one better than I do.
Sure.
This beer is really kind of why Church Street was started, so I'll let her kind of take the lead on that one.
So this was the inspiration?
This was the inspiration. Yes, my oldest son came home from West Point home brewing and saying that his dad needed a hobby. And he thought he'd really like brewing beer. And my husband's a chemical engineer, so it's right up his alley. They turned liquids from one thing to another, basically.
Yeah.
And so we got him home brewing equipment for Christmas. And Stephen and my husband Joe made beer on Christmas Day. It was a recipe Stephen had come up with.
Nice.
See, you thought Sean was the brewer. And so it was ready before he went back to West Point. They got to try it. It turned out well, and Joe was hooked. So by March, we were making all grain beer, and we had a lagering refrigerator by the summer. So and then it just kind of went from there. So about 5 years after that is when we actually started Church Street. But the reason he really started this was to make this one beer. When we first started, after we ordered the equipment and everything, his intention was to make Heavenly Hellas and only Heavenly Hellas.
And make enough for the whole world, right? That was it.
And that was it. So so this is his favorite liquid, he calls it. And so it is our flagship beer, I'm happy to say. So that part did work out.
And the year that we came out with it, it was voted Illinois' best lager. A lot of that's due in part to, we do what's called decoction mashing here. I know there might be two other places in Illinois or in the Chicagoland area that have the abilities to do it. I don't know if they always do it, but it requires special equipment and a special process, and it just makes it's a German way of making beer. So especially when you apply it to a lager like this, it just brings out more full-bodiedness, and that's something that we kind of have always leaned on.
Can you give just for the people who might be listening and not be familiar with that, the short version of how decoction works?
Basically, it's the way the Germans made beer before there were thermometers. They had to control the temperature of the mash, so they'd take a portion of the mash out and boil it and reintroduce it into the lauter. And that releases a different set of flavors, a different set of enzymes and everything into the beer. It kills that part so you can't get any more sugar out of it, but it makes it have a fuller body and just a little different flavor than is usual and that you're expecting from a beer that's this light in color.
Right.
And like she said, it kills the enzymes that produce the sugar that release it. So without the sugar being re-released or released more, you can leave it in there longer without the gravity, is what we call it, increasing, meaning the more sugar, usually the higher the alcohol. So for this, because you've introduced that much higher temperature wort, it can get more full-bodied, but it's not going to get more alcoholic. So you put this 5.5% beer versus another 5.5% beer, this one is always going to taste like it has more body because it does. So we leaned on that a lot. And I think that's, for the longest time, we were one of the first 30 breweries in all of Illinois. And we're a full production brewery. That's why there's all the sounds going on in the background. That's why there's no AC and you guys are sweating right now. because we did it as cheaply as possible. We're in an industrial area. It's hard to find. You know, if you bring your Tinder date here, you definitely think they're about to murder you. It's definitely in the middle of nowhere. I think we leaned on that a little too heavy, because once everybody else started coming about and they were coming out with all these new, interesting, unique beers, it wasn't enough just to say, oh, hey, it's decoction mashed. You know, people didn't care. You know, it's a great beer, but man, it's just one really good beer. I'd love to have a variety. And I think that's really what I kind of changed when I came on board. She hired me on about 1.5 years ago now. Yeah. And the first thing I did was I went on ride-alongs with all of our sales staff, and the first and only things out of their mouths were, hey, did you want to buy more Helles? And you could see everybody go, oh, God, this again. You know, it's like the Budweiser guy. You don't walk in and go, do you want Budweiser? You just don't do that. Either they want it or they don't. They know what it is. Right. They've known us for having that forever. That's not what we wanted. We needed to change that. I know we're not quite through this beer yet, but the next beer is really how we started to change that.
It's not that we didn't make other beers. We had a Scottish ale as our first beer that we made, actually. And we were making a round of seasonals, and we had 4 year-round beers also. One of them was an IPA, but it was how the salespeople led that he changed. Yes, absolutely. So when everybody knew that this is the best Helles you can get. But after, we're 7 years old, after 4 or 5 years of that, it doesn't matter how good your Helles is, we want variety, especially when all these IPAs were just blowing up the scene, especially with hazies coming out and stuff. So when she first sat me down and said, what are you going to do to help drive sales? I said, your product is the best. I think, honestly, it's some of the best beer that Chicagoland has to offer. And a lot of our awards go to say that. We're the first brewery ever to win 3 medals at FOBAB in 1 year. The Devil's Advocate, which is the next beer we're going to drink, was voted 4th best beer in the world by Beer Connoisseur last year. Heavenly Helles, Illinois' best lager. And it goes on and on. We had 2018 Chicago's favorite. A lot of really good beers. I told her we don't need to change anything but the way that we sell ourselves. So leading with other beers like the Devil's Advocate, I said that's probably the best beer you've ever made. I think that it's incredible. Let's start leading with that. If anybody loves Delirium Tremens or Victory Golden Monkey, or even more crafty places do like North Coast Prankster, those are all made hundreds of miles away, sometimes thousands when it comes to Belgium. Ours is just as good, if not better. Obviously, voted 4th best in the world last year, and we're not pushing it. So I said the first thing I want to do as sales director is take that beer and make it our secondary flagship, really. And now those 2 beers are our 2 highest sellers. They're amazing. We went from making a batch of Devils every 3 months to every month now we have to make it, because it sells out that much quicker, so about 3 times faster. And because it got that recognition, it was put into contention with the other beers in the world. So
was that the big driver, just to give something else? And that was the big push to do that?
That was the first one. And when we saw the success with that, because we had just, even though I had another brewery or was working at another brewery and helping them, we were still kind of building our relationship and trust. Right. So that was the first, let's just start changing the way we sell and see what it does. And when that tripled our sales of Devils, it was much easier for her to look at me and go, okay, which one do you want to do next?
And so that was more of you, kind of, as you said, with the salespeople to go in and sort of lead with that and just
absolutely. If you see,
to bars,
everybody knows that we have Helles, right? If it's a completely new brewery, sure, maybe offer that. But we're going into the same accounts every day, every week, and offering the same beer. And I said, we just have to stop doing that. Offer them another product. And some were hesitant at first, others went and just full out did it, and it tripled those sales. It was pretty impressive. This came around the same time that we were switching from bottles to cans, and we have all this nice artwork on it now. Everything's a stained glass window look to go along with Church Street. So it looked like a new product, even though it was a 7-year-old beer. Right. And that was huge. There's a new brewery in Chicagoland, 2 new breweries in Chicagoland every month. It's crazy. Some come and go, but that's kind of the running number. We needed to look new, even though we're 7 years old. Right. So that was the first one we did that too. Then I think the next one, and we actually kind of called it the method, the Cronin beer method. After that was we took one of our barrel aged beers, which went on to become Chicago's favorite. The plaque is sitting right over there on the wall of 2018. Lisa had the bright idea of putting them into 4-packs, even though it was a barrel aged beer, which I thought, well, there's no way Benny's is going to sell a 24 pack or $24 4-pack. It's not going to happen. But
they did.
But they did. And the moment they did, we went on. And another goal I had was to do 300 outside sales events to really drive. And if somebody sees that you're at every single place, they start thinking, man, they're doing great things. Even though we weren't changing anything except the way we presented ourselves, everybody thought, man, they've really turned around. We had some guy call us up and said, I don't know how, but I have never seen a brewery bounce back the way you guys have. And one of our new sales guys...
That was one of the Bennies that said
Yeah,
that.
and one of the sales guys goes, bounce back from what? Because we hadn't changed anything. There was no issues. There were no problems. It's just we weren't doing anything new and fresh. And then all of a sudden he saw us everywhere. We were in about 20 to 25 Bennies. Now we're in almost all 40. Just because we've made this new effort. We do a ton of sales events in Benny's or others, like Sal's, Caputo's, we're trying to get back into, Garfield's, Armanetti's. And so when they said there's no way we're going to sell this Cronin beer, I would bring the Cronin beer into a tasting, taste it out, everybody would love it, and I said, that's the beer buyer, his name's John or Mike or whatever, go tell him you want it. And then these guys, some of them very begrudgingly started buying our beer, and they were like, this is just too expensive. But when you have 7 people going, I will buy it right now, why don't you have it? He's sampling it, why don't you have it? They're all looking at me, some of them with disdain, and others with, I can't believe you've done this, you know? Right. So it's that Cronin beer method. It was very limited, it was very expensive, and we only gave it to set markets, and then people, the buzz on the internet, went crazy with, where can I find it? Oh my gosh, look, I'm dusting this off because it was in the back shelf of Beer Miscuous or wherever. Right. I can't wait to get more. So we've taken that and we've really limited all the different styles we do and how much we allow into the market. We've expanded to other markets that we're in, so we give half a batch maybe to Iowa, and then we have this half a batch for Chicago to try to drive a want for it. We make 900 gallons at a time. It's really hard for people to see us as anything other than, oh, I can get their beer whenever I want. And when you have that mentality, you end up never getting the beer. So when our distributor calls us up and says, hey, why did your Hefeweizen sell out the first month of summer and it's supposed to be your summertime seasonal? Well, you didn't buy enough of it and people came in and they bought it up for you. So it's even training not just the customers but our distributors sometimes to go, hey, if we want their beer and if it's high in demand, we better jump on it real quick. And so we kind of named that the Cronin beer method, and we've been trying to do that with a lot of our other beers as well.
Interesting. Yeah, well, it's interesting that you did that with the barrel stout because like a lot of people are going that route now. Like Revolution's doing it, Spiteful's doing it, Temperance did it. So yeah, a lot of people are picking up on that. Like, oh, we can sell this in 4-pack cans.
Absolutely. Yeah. There was a documentary I watched about Vindel Goods. It was really about Supreme, the brand Supreme. Oh, yeah. But they taught me what a Vindel Good was, and it's the higher priced a product is and the more limited it is, the more you want it, which isn't true for anything else. If you walked in and saw that Frosted Flakes was $10 more than Kellogg's, you wouldn't go, oh man, I have to have it because it's $10 more. But when I walk down a beer aisle and I see a beer for $24, I go, damn, that must be really good beer. I'm gonna take that because I don't want somebody else to scoop it up before me. And we don't price gouge at all. I think one of our problems was that our beer was so low in cost that people thought, oh, it must not be good. When in reality, we want people to experience our beer, so our prices have always been really competitive. We've just started making more aged. Yeah, more aged beers, or even we branched into the hazies, right? We're known for doing very traditional styles, not a lot of adjuncts, not a lot of additives. I say that as there's a raspberry chocolate pontificator right behind you, but that's only available in the tap room. Out in the market, we're a very traditional brewery. So we hadn't done a hazy IPA because we thought, well, it's not really a traditional style, right? And sometimes they're more of beer mosas than they are real beer. So we said, what if we do it, but we make it as true to beer as we possibly can? And that's our Juicifer, and I wish I could give you that beer as well. But it's a 9.2. It's tied for either first or second highest rated untapped hazy in Illinois with Alarmus Le Juice, which I don't know if you know, but it won a gold medal last year. Yeah. So even if we're beneath them, I'll take silver. I'm okay with that. And it sold out in less than a week. And that's with very little marketing behind it. It's just the fact that it was a hazy. 9.2% with no fruit juice added and very, very little lactose. Not to make it milkshakey, but so little that she doesn't like it when I say it, but I usually say no lactose. The only reason we can't say that exactly is because if they have a lactose intolerance.
Yeah.
Right.
But yeah, that beer wouldn't go down too well. But it was really true to beer. It wasn't a beer mosa, and people really liked that. There's tons of hazies out there, but they're getting wild and crazy.
Right.
This was, let's take it back. The hazies have been out long enough to kind of see a traditional version of it, and man, they love it. And actually, this Saturday, ChurchStFull will come back, and we're doing a 75 4-pack release. That's all we have of them. First 75 people through the door gets a T-shirt, a 4-pack, and then a snifter of it for $45. So it's pretty nice.
Awesome.
And that is following exactly that Cronin beer method, where we're just, let's give them a good product at a nice price, but let them know that, hey, if you don't jump on now, you might not get it.
We made 2 batches of ChurchStFull this time, and we don't. That's what we have left.
That's all we have
basically.
left. Because the outside markets have who didn't get it last time, they're first in line to get it this time.
Right.
And we're not really afraid of flooding the market and going back to where, you can get it anytime, because it sells out so fast, we can't keep up.
Yeah.
It's a 3-week process, if not a little bit longer. And when it's selling out in less than 7 days, you could brew that nonstop and really not run out.
And we have to make other things.
We have to make other beers.
Limited capacity.
Yeah.
Well, and that almost leads to, and I guess, I don't know if this is a question or it's a statement of just the overall branding work that you tried to do initially, so that once you kind of jump onto a beer trend, you're like, oh, geez, I really need to try that.
Absolutely. And because it has our name behind it, people say, I bet it's a good beer.
Trust you.
And this is one of the biggest things. I've gone to all of our distributors in the state, and I have said what we really want to do, our mantra right now is sell the brewery, not the beer. Because we started rotating beers, and they were going, well, we can't get that anymore. And now we have customers who we sold it to, and they can't get it, and now they're upset. Well, then you sold it wrong. Because you didn't sell the brewery, you sold the beer. And when the beer's gone, of course they're mad. Right. But if you sold them the brewery, we're not going away. The next thing they say is, oh, ChurchStFull's out? Well, that sucks. When's it coming back? Well, to tell you, Little Lucy, which is the sessionable version of the exact same beer, is in right now. Oh, hell yeah, I'll take that instead. Right. So instead of just falling in love with one beer and being just that one beer, which we used to just be Hellas, And of course we made more, but that's what people knew us for. You asked anybody else, oh yeah, they're Hellas. Oh, you guys made Devil's Advocate? That's what the guy at Benny's told me. He goes, I love that beer. You guys make that? Yeah. That's how separated they were from who we really were. And once we started selling the brewery and not the beer, we had a meeting, I remember, with one of our distributors. I taught them that, and you could just see all of their new sales reps, right, their newer company, all went, oh, nice. That next month was the best month they'd ever had by over 2 times. Because they just went in and they started selling Church Street.
They sold it differently.
Right, and they said, female-owned and operated brewery. Their sales staff is very supportive. They're trying to do over 300 outside sales events, so if you want them to come in, do a tap takeover, or just come in and support the brand, they'll do it. And then getting even more off-the-wall things, they host cool nudist events at their brewery. They host live wrestling events. They had the circus in one time. They are hosting a new beer fest. They do collaboration breweries for something like 25 other breweries. So we're not just making our beer and making it very well. Other people who are these newer breweries that aren't production like we are, much more low, like a little bit lower in the brewing side, but much higher in the taproom side, on Main Street and on Industrial Drive, stuff like that. You can see where they put their money into. Well, when they come up with a really good recipe and start running out of it, they come to us old geezers who have the big equipment, and we make it for them. We've never once advertised that we're in contract brewing, but we are either the second or third biggest contract brewer in the state. And it's because people know and like our beer, but that's something we didn't brag about before. And now we do. Like, we don't just make our beer, but that other beer you really like, we make that too. And now all of a sudden they're going, man, Church Street is making a lot of really good beer. Right. And then now those waves, which we made ourselves, other people are starting to feel the effects of, and they don't know that you're the one sitting there making the waves. They just go, hey, I heard that they do live wrestling. Hey, I heard that they actually make that beer, and that they're in cahoots with these other guys, or they partner with these guys. Every single beer that anybody from Let Us Entertain You pours under their own name, we make that. So when you go to Shaw's Trap Shack and you say, I love the Shaw's Triple, well, we weren't telling people that we were making it until we kind of made those adjustments. And now when we sit down, we sell you on the brewery. The beer is going to sell itself. We tell you, hey, did you know we do this? Did you know we do this? Did you know we won 4th best beer in the world last year? It's just a little bit of humble bragging, if not just straight up bragging. But really what you call it in the business is just marketing, And that was something that Lisa she's very humble and she's very modest, even though she speaks 5 languages, has 18 doctorate degrees or whatever. She's a very smart person.
We have master's degrees.
Only master's degrees. Oh, I'm so sorry. Just 2 of them though, right? She's very humble and she's, small town girl. And I think she needed to find somebody with a voice. And if you're listening to podcasts, I think I can talk anybody's ear off. So I think she found that, and I couldn't have done what I did without her help or without the beer. It just wouldn't have worked. It would have come across as bullshit, but it wasn't. It's really good. And then when you start connecting to people on other things that they really are interested in, like wrestling or whatever else that we're doing, contract brewing, that's huge when we're collaborating. People really like that. That we found anyway. Sales are up 35%, so I think they like that.
I was gonna actually ask Lisa if you maybe could take us back. This has been really interesting to hear how you started to shift things. Wondering how you found your audience in the earlier days and made the connections and kind of, to the extent whatever platform you had or audience you had and reach. What were you doing in those early days to kind of contrast with then the shift
with now? Well, for the first 5 years, we were the only brewery around here. And that helped a lot. So we had a surprising number of people in our tap room. We, as you look at this here, when we started the place in November of 2012, when we put together the tap room, we couldn't imagine more than about 20 people being in.
There's only 4 chairs there, or 4 tables.
Yeah, so we have like 25 chairs in this small area, and we started having groups of we'd have 200 people in here on a Friday night. So we would just set up. We have tables and chairs in the back here, and just welcome people in. We'd have a food truck. And just have the whole town basically show up.
You're like, wow, people really want to drink beer.
Surprise. But we were kind of a new, that breweries were new and cool back then, right? There weren't a lot of them. So people would find us, and we were open very limited hours. I think we were open for 2 hours on Friday night, and that was it when we first started. And we, over time, expanded that. And we were up to 7 days being open by the time Jace got here. But we, I don't know. We just still had a lot of people show up just because it was, because there was no place else to go.
2 years ago, if you Google brewery, right, we'd be the only one within 20 miles. You do it now, and there's Microphone, Wolf Den, Itasca Brewing. There's a lot more options.
They're like 5 within about 5 miles of here now.
So we're sharing those people.
So we're sharing those people. We get a lot more people now, I think, that are from out of town. So it's more people that are going. They want their passport stamped.
Absolutely.
The passport program is a great program for getting people.
Or they come in with their phones open because they see that Juicifer has a 4.3 on Untapped, and that puts it in the top 10% of beers in the world, and it's right down the road. Or it's 20 minutes down the road, and they're going, "Oh man, I have to try this beer." Right. So they're going in with their phones open, going, "Hey, do you have this beer?" Yes, we do. And then they love it. So we're getting a lot more craft people in, and maybe less locals, because it used to be the only place around, and now we're splitting that. If you're driving home from Roselle and you pass us, you come in. But now if you drive home from Roselle, you have Pollyanna, you have Wolf Den right there. You're passing 2 more breweries. So it's just different.
It's just different than it was.
Sure.
So I think that's really what kind of made the shift.
So there was a lot of word of mouth.
Right.
I'll just say at the beginning, we've always done Facebook and things like that, but the word of mouth was really strong when we were the only brewery in town. So a lot of people.
No, that makes sense. I mean, that's I think useful to. I think a lot of people are dealing with the new reality of 7,300 breweries. Right. And it's sometimes easy to forget. Like 7 years old is not that old. It's not that old for a business,
right?
But it's
for craft beer.
It's craft.
What I do all of our tours, and I say the number one thing that makes us different is that we're old. And I say now 7 years old doesn't seem that old, but look at the bell curve basically of breweries. It's going to hit a peak at some point, and we're still rising. Right. But we were before that curve even started. We were the first 30, and then now we're at 190. Even if it's just 7 years. It's really more about the quantity of breweries and the shift that breweries took. they didn't think that people were going to go to a brewery and sit down and have 3 or 4 beers. But now people don't bar hop; they brewery hop. They go brewery to brewery to brewery, and people are, you make $4 off of every pint glass at a tap room. If you sell a case of beer, you make about $7. So what would you rather make? Would you rather make 4 off of every beer or 7 off of 24? People are putting more money into their tap room to draw people in than worrying about making enough beer to supply every Benny's. Right. So supplying every Benny's will net you less money than just selling that beer here. Mm-hmm. Our tap room does about a third of our sales, and you're sitting in it. Right. And we're in 7 states and 5 countries, and yet this little tap room does a third of our overall sales.
Yeah.
And it does about only 10% of the beer we make. So 90% of the beer is making a third, 10% is making a third, and like I said, we do contract brewing. That's about a third as well.
Yeah. Oh wow. Okay. Interesting.
So that's how important these tap rooms are.
Yeah.
Ready for beer number 2?
Let's kill these.
Yeah. And
it's got nice graininess, a little sweetness, but still goes down nice.
When we go to festivals, a lot of times, I don't know if they still do it, but it used to be all the brewers would come over at the end of the night and said, "Did you bring your palate?" just from the palate fatigue.
It's funny, I was listening to...
the keg doesn't pop and I have to change
Michael Kaiser was talking with...
Wouldn't want you waiting that long.
Mike Siegel at Goose Island and Ryan Pattinson about their Obadiah Poundage. We actually sat down with Siegel and Todd Osmond and talked about a lot of different things.
So you guys,
Island, but
as you can see by the snifters, this is a little bit more potent.
Sure,
it's about 9%.
But we're talking about how the ESB is a great beer, but it's got the wrong name for today's beer market, right? And even a Hellas lager, or I think wit beer too, or golden. Some of these beers that they. Compared to the IPA, which just promises all this big flavor,
right?
But every time I have a golden, I'm like, I actually really like this style.
Absolutely.
I have a whip beer, when I have them, I'm like, I forget how much I like this.
Brewers aren't marketing geniuses, right? They're very
scientists.
Yeah, they're scientists, and they just by the book. What is it? It's a pale ale.
Yeah.
Well, Americans have bastardized what a pale ale is into meaning hoppy. So when people walk in and go, "Yeah, can I just get a pale ale?" I'm like,
we don't have any.
Do you want a Belgian pale ale? Because that's close to our golden.
Right.
Or do you like a lager? Oh no, I don't like.
No,
lagers.
I don't like lagers. Well, then what do you mean by pale ale? What are you talking about?
Do you know what a lager is?
And they're like, well, something like an IPA, pale ale, India pale ale, and I'm like, yeah, but that's the bastardized version of looking at it, and it's just a fault of marketing
and just the weird history of names.
Absolutely.
I mean, extra special bitter is less bitter than most pales. I mean,
yeah,
right?
Bitter beer in England wasn't bitter at all.
Right. So the just the history of these terms is so bizarre, and people forget.
Yep.
And so I think they were saying Fuller's renamed one of their ESBs just be. I think London Pride is technically an ESB.
And it used to be Fuller's ESB.
Yeah.
And people do that too. They'll come in and go, "Can I get an ale?"
Can I get an amber?
Yeah, people go amber.
They're like, "Hey, can I get an ale?" And I'm like, "What kind of ale?" And they go, "Can I get a lager?" And I'm like, "Buddy, you walk into a brewery that does nothing but lagers, man. We got 8 different lagers, and if you pour them a Doppelbock, they sure as hell aren't going to enjoy that beer because that's not what they wanted. They want a light lager. They want a Helles, but they don't even know how to say it half the time. They go, "Can I get a Helles?" And you're like, "Well, it's a Helles. Sure, I'll give it to you." And it means light in German. It really was there to compete against the Czech-style pills. It's just one of those things where people are becoming more knowledgeable, which is really nice. But one of the biggest things, so I also have a lot of experience in the tap room, and one of my biggest things was corporate training. And I would go from craft beer bar to craft beer bar and help train the staff. Diction is really important, which is what you're hitting on. Relate it to a beer they already know. There's 3 types of people. People who know nothing about beer, people who think they know it all, and then people willing to learn, right? And the people willing to learn are the people that walk into craft beer bars. Also the snobby people that know it all too. But they just pick it out and they know what they want. They don't want your opinion because you're beneath them, of course. But the people who are willing to learn, they say, "Well, I don't know. I really like Boston Lager." All right, well, that's an amber. You want to give them something with caramel malt. You want to do that. So what about our Itasca Fest, which has caramel malt, and it's also a lager. We once just took that to a festival and called it a red lager, and people ate it up. But if you call it an Oktoberfest in July, they go, I don't want an Oktoberfest in
Yeah.
July. Call it a red lager, and it won an award. It won an award. And if I had called it, it was the most popular beer at that fest. And if I had called it an Oktoberfest, they wouldn't have drank it.
Right.
They wouldn't have
They
done
would pass it by.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's sometimes when the guys back there come up with what we're going to call something, I think it kind of has to go for me as a filter or me and Lisa, because we're like, how am I supposed to sell it like
Right.
that? You know, like how am I
Absolutely.
supposed to do that?
Yeah.
We need to make it to where in very short, quick terms
Yeah.
that are consistent with everybody. Because I'm a big diction guy. I like everybody using the same terms because that's what she wanted. She said, I want a voice for both the inside the taproom sales
Yep.
and outside sales that is consistent.
Yeah.
And so everybody I've
Makes
trained
sense.
and hired, they say the same things about every beer so that when they go to talk to their friends about it, they're saying the same things as well.
Right.
And there's, crushable is a word we always throw around. Approachable. All of our beers are approachable. None of them have these weird adjuncts or additives, again, while we're sitting right in front of
Right.
a raspberry chocolate. But just knowing that the worst thing I want somebody to say about our beer is that it's not for them. We don't want somebody to go, oh God, why would they put that in beer? It's disgusting. I just want to be traditional, true to our roots, but then kind of branch out a little bit and just always be approachable, crushable, sessionable, whatever the word is for that beer.
Yeah.
I want people to
Balanced.
tie on. Balance is a really
That's
good one.
all of our beers are really balanced. You don't get.
Tell us about what we got here.
Yeah.
This is one of Joe's second. This is one of Joe's recipes too. It's one
Cheers,
of
guys.
it's
Cheers.
our. It was one of our other early beers. So he spent a lot of time in
Devil's
Belgium.
Advocate.
Yes.
Also, we called it Devil's Advocate because in Belgium, if you tap 2 or 3 of these, he said people from America would go there. He'd be sitting with friends having beers, and these would knock people off their bar stools.
Oh, yeah.
Because they had no idea what was
Yeah.
going on. But they drink 2 or 3, and then
Yeah.
it's like they're like, "Wow, what
Yep.
just happened to me?" And
That's why they're in snifters.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so that's why it's in snifters. But
Mhm.
it's very easy to drink that way. But this is another one of his favorite styles. And
So you call it a
Devil's Advocate-
Belgian style ale on here.
Well,
yeah.
because they
They won't
I
let you
couldn't-
say a Belgian beer.
I can't.
Right,
No,
right.
I can't say strong.
Or strong.
Can't say
They
You
won't
can't
say
put
that
strong
either.
in the name.
The TTB
anywhere.
is very particular.
But
and every
that's the-
agent of the TTB is
The
different,
style
too.
is
Right.
golden strong ale.
Right.
When
It's a
we
style.
Strong
I said-
style
I said,
ale.
it's a beer style, and they said doesn't matter.
Belgian
strong
doesn't
is
matter.
implying
Yeah,
a bad thing.
Belgian
Wow.
style, strong style ale,
Right, yeah.
whatever. It'll
Ale
come down to
style
that.
ale.
Yeah,
No, you can't say
kind of
strong
like a
style.
beer.
You can't
Can't
put
say
strong in the
at
name.
all.
at all.
That's
You
crazy.
just can't put strong in the
Interesting.
description, even though it's a beer style.
Yeah.
So
let
that's
that be
another
a
marketing
lesson
thing
too.
that you
Oh,
have to have.
Right, you
we
have
made
to-
we made Illinois' first ever hemp IPA, and we had really bad problems with that too because they didn't want it to be related to hemp at all. Well, there's hemp in it. How are we supposed to?
Right.
What are we supposed to say? You know what I mean? So it's very.
called major hemp, though.
Yeah, it's called. Yeah, the whole thing's called major hemp, and we just had to say IPA on the description. It's very. Again, speaking on marketing terms, it's very. You make a really great beer, and then it's sometimes kind of frustrating because you can't market it the way you do, which is why individual salesmen and distributor salesmen need to know those words to sell it. Because is somebody going to read the label, or are they going to look you in the face while you're talking and listen to what you're saying? They're going to listen to what you're saying. You can describe that beer however you want, and then they're going to take that as truth because you're the one selling it.
Yeah.
And then they might not even look at the label. They might not look at all.
So yes, so this one's another of the originals.
Yeah, it's nice. It's,
And when I first had it, I love Belgian ales, and I
Yeah.
thought this is the best beer you've ever made. I love the house, but I'd had it before. Why? Because I was outside Church Street, and that's all they were known for to me, to other people. But when I had that, I said, I can't believe that you guys make this beer. This beer is phenomenal, and I thought it was one of the best in the world. Turns out that other people thought so too. And that's really when she said, what are we gonna, like I said earlier, what are you gonna do to try to change things? Let's start with that. Let's not make anything new right now. Let's scale back what we are making, because we were making a ton of beer when I first came on.
Ton of different styles.
Ton of different styles,
Right.
yes. When I first walked on, we'd have sales meetings and it'd go something like this. All right, this beer needs to be sold. We made it 3 months ago. It needs to be sold. Okay, everybody go out and do that. Whoa, before you leave, this beer is 2 months old. We need to sell that. And we would do that for 18 different beers. And then I'm sitting there going, no one in the
Quite
world
that bad.
can walk in and sell
Right.
18 beers to an account. You need to have your mainstays, your one seasonal, and maybe one beer you're pushing that's limited. And we couldn't quite do that our first year that I was here because we had all that beer on
Yeah.
hand. So we would focus on one. and then we focus on another. And then doing the outside sales events, like festivals and stuff, we'd start taking that beer and just pouring through it. You know, we were killing ourselves by going to every fest, every tasting we possibly can,
We had
just
some,
to try to push through beer.
We had some distribution challenges in 2018.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or in end of 2017 and 2018 that kind of explains why we had all that beer on
Yes.
hand. So it wasn't actually on purpose.
Oh no, not at all. It's
Well,
just
sure,
we
right.
had a lot, and yeah, it just kind of happened without getting much support from those distributors that dropped us or that we wanted to drop us. So we had those issues as they were being sorted. Though we had to find a way of getting this great beer out to the market before it became not so great beer. And we were constantly, that first year I was here, constantly playing kind of behind the eight ball. That's the idiom, right? Behind the eight ball. Yeah, whatever. We were playing
That's
catch up.
right.
We were playing
Yeah.
catch up, and then once 2019 came, January 1st, we almost had everything wrapped up, and so it felt like a brand new Church Street. And we picked all the beers we were going to make. It was much more limited. The tap room had a lot more small batches that were coming in, while outside just had what we could sell.
Yeah.
And now our marketing meetings, our sales meetings kind of go something like this. Hey guys, stop selling this beer. It's already sold out. Okay, stop that. And then let's focus
Do this
on
one
what's
instead.
coming out before. Let's pre-sell beers. So instead of playing from behind, we were just going in, and really brewery reps can't sell beer. We have to go through our distributor, right? So we were playing sales reps because we had so much beer to sell. Now we're actually playing brewery reps, what we should be. We're the fun guys. We're coming in and just dangling that carrot in front of you, right? And saying, this is what's about to come out. You better reserve one now. And when they call up their distributor and go, I better be on that short list to get that beer. That's where we should have been all along. And we're just now starting to find ourselves like that. So now when we brew a beer or when we package one, we're calling people up going, hey, this is your first and only call. You know, like, what do you want? And in what 6-dolls or half barrels or cans, what do you want? Because it's going to be gone tomorrow. And please pick up this week. Which is a much better way of doing business.
Oh, yeah.
It's how all the big guys do it. They brew for an order, not make beer because they need to, and then hope people buy it.
Right.
You know.
Well, that's all branding and marketing, kind of just pre-selling everything.
Yep.
So you can just be there and people are like, oh yeah, I know that stuff's going to be great.
Exactly. Which you just reworded what? Sell the brewery, not the beer.
Right.
If they already know it's going to be there and they know it's going to be great, you've sold them on the brewery. So it's pretty great. I think our days are much less stressful nowadays. And
days.
it's most
Well,
stuff
the
always
focus
comes
is
out.
good. I mean, especially at a brewery and to see everything, so many different trends going on, just to be able to narrow that down, I think helps everyone. Just, okay, that's where our energy is going to go. That's what we're going to focus on.
Right.
Less stress. That's all you got to worry about.
And, we can't pick everything up and move, right?
Right.
But that's where other people are doing. They're making, they're putting their breweries on Main Street because they want the foot traffic. So when we say we can't pick up and move, how do we draw people here? Well, besides just word of mouth or Googling, what else can we do? Well, we went and got a smaller system, and we're making really, edit the burp out too if you want. Making really small batch beers that you can only have in the
Please,
tap room. So if they're falling in love with our beers at Benny's, right? But they're slowly starting to learn, okay, every beer they make is good. I wonder what beers they don't have at Benny's.
Right.
And then they start coming in. That wasn't happening. Every single beer we made was here and at Benny's. So what brings people here? When they're passing a Benny's on the road, they're just gonna stop and get it. And when it's there, it's supposed to be seasonal, but it's there 8 months. What's the point? I can just get it whenever I want. But now when our seasonals are selling out the month they come out, people are going, ooh, if you see it, you better get it. And if you can't get it at Benny's, they promise, which is one thing that we've changed is, or dedicated ourselves to, we'll have it here as long as Benny's has it, or if not longer. So that if they run out,
If we can help it.
if we can help it, right?
Right.
So that if you're upset that it's not there, we have it here. And if it's run out on draft or we have the cans of it, don't worry, we'll cut it in half and we'll pop it, pour it, and give it to you. Like we'll do it. If you want the beer and you drove all the way to come get it here, we're gonna make sure you get
you
what
the
you
beer.
want.
Yeah.
Because
We'll do our best.
this is what fuels so much of our growth. I don't think we touched on that either. We have a portion of the building we've already secured. We're going to knock down this wall, expand our tap room about 3 times the size. Because where we're at right now, we're hosting twice as many parties, 2.5 times as many events, and our foot traffic, which is really hard to calculate, is through the roof. But our sales in the tap room are very stalled because we're very limited by not our size, but how quickly we can get through customers. There's
Yeah.
only one computer, and there's not much room for a line.
Right.
So when you have a 400-person event and there's 80 people in line, they don't typically wait in line anymore. They get one beer and they leave, which is fine. You know, and our Yelp reviews are never really bad. They'll say, yeah, they could have had one more server. Well, look at the bar. You can't fit more than 2 people back there. So we're very limited by our capacity to serve people, not our size. So we're blowing out some walls. We're making a larger bar. We're adding more POSs just to service people a little bit quicker.
Yeah.
You know, and then that, because we have twice as many people, if not more, coming in. We just need to make sure that they stay and they're happy.
Right.
But we want to stay true to our, when you look around, you feel like you're in a brewery. We want to stay true to that. We don't want it to, what did I tell our architects? We don't want it to shine. You know, we want it to be new, but we don't want it to glit and glimmer. We don't want that. But we want it to feel just the way it feels right now because that's what people love about it. We just need it to be a little bigger.
Right.
You know?
Which is
We're
always
getting
that's always the test, how to grow while keeping it still to
Without
your roots.
selling out.
Right.
You know, and when I do the tours, I almost always get this question because we are growing so quickly now, and people are really starting to catch on and go, man, we gotta have Church Street, gotta have Church Street. The beer's great. They're doing something new over there, and that just kind of reignited everything. All of our passions too. When I first came in, just my passion alone, I think, really kind of like helped people feel better about what we're doing. You know, the brewery guys, they were like, you know, we've always made. I had Chuck. He's such a nice guy. It was one of my first months here, and he pulled me aside and he goes, hey, we've always made better beer than other people, which, you know, it's not my words, it's his, so nobody misquotes me. And he goes, but now we're not being out hustled by the other guy. And I was like, well, thank you, Chuck. You know, because we just have this driving force now that Lisa always wanted, but she's just one woman running it all on her own.
Sure.
She couldn't do it all. But she knew that, and she went and sought somebody out that I had just done this for another brewery, and she said, would you want to come do it for me? And I said, heck yeah, man.
That was one of those mutual things,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
absolutely.
He left the other place. He asked me if I knew of anybody looking for somebody.
Because I knew she
Or-
contract brewed.
Or
Right.
yeah, or I kind of like to work for you. I said,
Because
"Well,
we
yeah."
had
You're
met
like,
by
oh, really?
happen chance. I had moved right down the road, came in here. She was very nice. The connection between us is really weird. I'm from Arkansas. She's from up here in Illinois. Her son went to West Point the same year I went to the Air Force Academy. There's only 4 service academies, and you don't. It's not very easy to get into them. So that was weird. But it gets one step further weird.
Yeah, it
The
does.
best man in his wedding was my roommate in basic training at the Air Force Academy. So
Wow.
once she heard that, she kind of
Yeah.
knew the
We both
character.
remembered each other.
Yeah.
She kind of knew me to my character, and at least I had to be somewhat smart, right? And then I had to be in this beer business because of passion, not for anything else, because it's not very lucrative unless you're at the very tippy top. So she knew a lot about me already, and then she went into the other brewery, saw what we had done, what I had built with the other person, and said, yeah, if you could help him do that, I think you could help me do this as well. And she had all these ideas of expansion, just no way of getting there.
Yeah.
And then she just needed to find her voice. And even if it wasn't her that was going to be the voice, she knew she had to go out and find somebody that was going to be. And she just kept stressing that. She kept saying, I need somebody that will speak for the brewery, both inside the tap room and out,
Right.
and will take us to that next level. And I'm so happy I was able to do that because I made a lot of promises to her that I could.
Right.
And I'm just very happy that it worked out.
That's the biggest issue with almost all businesses. Like, you just get so deep, you're just covered, and it's like, okay, well, what's the thing that I need to pitch, and how do I sell it?
Yep.
So, like, let's try and unwrap some of your history before you guys met, and how that all came up. Like,
I think he means your frustrations.
yeah, frustrations. Like, what did
Did you see that face she gave me?
What was your real story from where you started reaching out to someone and finding another voice, and how did that all
Well, that kind of that was just kind of
serendipitous?
yeah, that it actually ended up with Jace. It was something I was looking for, but I hadn't met the person that I thought could do that yet.
Mhm.
And I did say to him, I said, I'd really like to work with you too. I'm just not quite sure what I'm going to do with you yet. So that was
Because there's a lot of other people still in place, and she wanted to make sure that those people had a chance to be that voice,
Right.
and she
or whatever. So
Or, yeah.
yeah, so we had a sales rep for a long time that and pretty much, well, we had 1 or 2. It kind of depended on the time that had worked with us for a long time, and it was just it was time for a refresh, I think. And so it took a few months for us to figure out exactly how we were going to accomplish all this. And then at the end of April, I just kind of went, okay, I'm ready, you know, and we just switched gears. I took Jace with us to the
CBC.
Craft Brewers Conference that year, and our head brewer TJ, and the three of us went down to the Craft Brewers Conference instead of anybody else and basically spent a week in Nashville together and got to know each other, and then we came up with a game plan between the three of us at that point that we've basically we've been trying to achieve since then.
Yes.
So that was a year ago in April.
Yep.
And that was how that happened. You know, we were just kind of, I'm an accountant, my husband's a chemical engineer. He's kind of backed off from the business. He doesn't have a lot to do with it. Maybe it's just being an engineer, you like to start things up and then you go on to the next thing. The day-to-day stuff is just not fun. But he doesn't have that much to do with it. And to be honest, I was hoping he would come back. So you wait, you know, and you hope, but he's not coming back. So then it was time to make some changes.
Yeah.
I have an MBA in finance and accounting. That's what I'm talking about, the master's degree. So I know how to run a business, and I've done a lot of not-for-profit things, and I ran a doctor's. I've done a bunch of stuff in my life. But I know how to motivate people. I know how to make things go.
Great leader.
But we had, and I like to give people a lot of autonomy too. But you better you know what I want, and you better do what I want. I don't care how you do it, but accomplish it. And I think it took him a long time to realize that I basically was giving him a fairly free rein, because he wasn't used to it at all. So it was a learning curve for him too.
I was used to having goals, but not really having full resources to just go out and do those goals. It always had to go through a final filter, or it wasn't the voice that the other person wanted. And it's not just the other brewery, it was everybody before me. I just had all these big ideas, and it was either through corporates who it moved slowly or something. This was the first place ever where when she asked me, why'd you do that? It wasn't with a negative, why the hell did you do that? It was, why'd you do that? Because it worked, and I really want to know how that works. And so we got in fights over nothing, because I thought she was coming across like everybody else. But really, she's sitting there going, I think you're misunderstanding. I'm loving what you're doing, and I want to take notes.
And I tell other people.
I want you to explain it to me, because we come from totally different backgrounds. We're totally different people. I want to understand.
So I just wasn't used to that level of trust, and it really was. But it all came from those 6 months that I didn't really work here, that I was just helping out. She would have me in on meetings, or we'd go down and bend each other's ear, and then she just really liked what I had to say at all these places. And then when she made her decision, which we're very similar, when I make my mind up, it's made. When she made her decision to give me full reign, I didn't believe her, because I had heard that before. But she really meant, you go do it, and it has fruited a lot of great things.
But I expect people to give me 110%. And if you're not going to, at some point, I give people lots of chances, but it was just time to switch gears and go in another direction.
So many people in the brew house have been here since day one. And a lot of the other people she was expecting these great things had not been. So you started getting this like rift, And then whenever I came in and I was helping as much as I possibly could, I could see it. Every day I was there, the guys in the brewery worked a little harder. Or they started actually setting tables up for me. That was when I knew I was in. Because they went, after a long day at work, they went and they made my day a little bit easier by doing 20 more minutes of work. And that's their way. Or when Chuck pulled me aside and said, man, you are really doing great things for us, you're hustling. That was when I realized we are moving in the right direction.
Those guys, I had a really nice brewing team. They're awesome. And the sales team, because you have to be so self-motivated. I mean, it was hard for them to give 110% every single day.
But these guys, they're working, 8, 9. Yesterday they worked 14 hours. And they see how hard they work, and then they couldn't go to Benny's and get their own beer, so they just felt kind of slighted. And then now that they see equal amounts of work, it's just grown so exponentially.
Well, we're all collaborative, and it's a very nice working relationship, and we were that way in the brewery. We all worked really well together. We weren't that way taproom and sales, and now we've gotten there.
But again, she knew that. She wanted that voice that could bridge the gap between both. And I think it took me a little while with those guys, because they only judge you on your work ethic. That's it, you know. And it's hard to show them that you're working hard when you're hardly ever here. But when they started seeing our beer, but when they see our beer everywhere, they see that I'm running the tap room and doing emails when there's nobody at the bar, or showing up and saying, hey, I want you to walk me through this decoction mash process so I can explain that better. They're like, okay, this guy's not shitting around. Like he's really helping, and he wants to be here.
And people
you have to
follow.
want to be here.
But people follow your lead,
Yeah.
whatever that lead may be.
And your passion. If you have passion for it, it inspires other people's passion.
Right. Yeah.
We had this, one of the funniest things, and she hates it because I already have a big enough ego, but people, we had this whole marketing team come in for like a corporate retreat, and halfway through my tour, the guy went, stop. You are amazing. He's like, you have sold me, I want to drink this beer every day of my life. He goes, how much is she paying you? I want you on my team. And then and I was like, you're going to have to go talk to her, man. And so she's like, no, we love Jace. He's going to stick around. And he goes, what'd you say? You said, if I know anything about Jace, he's loyal. And I was like, you're absolutely right. I love my job here. I'm here. And the guy goes, man, that makes me want you even more. He's like, but that was a whole marketing team. You know what I mean? And he said, you didn't sell me on how you made beer, because that's not what our tour is about. You don't come here to learn how to make beer. You come here because you want our story. You know what I mean? That's why I asked what kind of podcast is this. Do you want us to talk about grain? Because I'm going to leave. I'll give you a brewer. But if you want us to talk about how we kind of turned this place around and made us new again, even though we're 7 years old, it was selling ourselves, and it was being passionate. And people, man, they really go for that. One of the best things I think I did was surround myself with more passionate people and reinvigorate all the people that were passionate, but after 5 years, they forgot how much they loved being here. Steve he's been one of my good friends for a long time. We worked together at the place where I said I was kind of a corporate trainer. He worked with me there, and he had always wanted to move from being just the tall, strong, sexy bartender that everybody loved to like, I want to do sales, you know?
He also wanted to be home in the evening.
He had a kid, so he wanted to be able to do that. And no one was giving him a chance because he had, he didn't go to college, and he had no degree, and he had never done sales before. And he didn't want to start by selling Arizona iced tea for a distributor. He wanted to sell somebody's brewery, like beer. So he came in, and when she saw that he was just as happy-go-lucky as I was, she's like, yeah, I think you guys are a match made in heaven. And he alone has so much helped drive our sales. And then I put him behind the bar on Fridays, and it's like I'm a pile of dog crap compared to him. I love Steve. But that's great. Like Steve Jobs, I think, said it. Like, I surround myself with smart people because I don't need to challenge their intelligence. I know they're smarter than me. I'm gonna let them do their thing. So I went out and I surrounded myself with funnier, apparently with Steve, better looking. I still don't know how the hell that happened. And just as passionate and enthusiastic people. From the last brewery I worked at, another guy named Dan, he was doing their tours, and when he walked in and said, yeah, I'd love to work for you again, I went, heck yeah, you definitely have a job, because I want passionate people that when they sit down and they drink our beer, they go, damn, man, we really do have the best beer in Chicago. That's what I want to hear. I don't want to hear, we have great beer. Well, I mean, it's okay, but I don't want to hear that. You have to be passionate, and I think every single person working here really believes in what we're doing. And
so you have to give people their own team. You have to give them the opportunity to form their own team, and not have to have everybody, them conform to what they're doing.
That's that's that good to great thing, right? Like you get the right people on the bus, and like give people the autonomy to do what they're good at.
Absolutely.
And you don't micromanage, because you don't. I mean, sales is not my thing. Do you know what I mean? My thing is more administrative, I guess, or more kind of. Now it's. I'm trying more and more to do where are we going next kind of things.
And I think my only regret with Church Street is that I didn't believe her when she was telling me this. And I always relate it. Your job is kind of like a relationship. You carry scars from your previous experiences. And
corporate burns.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
So like when I was here,
I'm looking at
and when she was telling me these things, and I just had all this emotional baggage or professional baggage, really. It took us a while before I realized, man, she really does. She's going to let me do this. And it was the first time ever that somebody saw my hard work, and instead of thinking, how can I use him for his hard work, she said, how can I grow him so that he helps us? Right. And it's so hard to trust somebody after going through a lot of other stuff. And then when I brought Steve on, he had come from similar jobs, sometimes the same job. And he was like, he'd be in a meeting, and then he'd call me up and he goes, is Lisa bullshitting us or is she for real? And I'm like, no, this is for real, dude.
Yeah.
Like, I've been here a year longer than you. Like, this is for real. He's like, man, I love this job. I'm like, yeah, it's great. It takes time to build that trust, but once it's there, man, it's unbreakable. And I think we have a team that will take us all the way to the next level.
Go, were you going to say something?
Not really.
Because I'm going to ask more on that, though. So, like, because that's the mark of the great leader, but at the same time, like, 80 to 90% of people miss that because they're just getting in their own way. So, like, is there a way that you saw to be able to give people autonomy to do things, or like, how did that?
It's just always been the way I managed. Okay, I managed. Like 35 people at Northwestern Memorial Hospital back in the 80s that ranged in age between 18 and 65, and I was 24. And even those people, I did my best to manage that way. They were in several different locations in the hospital and stuff, so you can't be everywhere all the time.
Right.
And so you have to, yeah, you build the relationship and you have to build the trust with them. I do it with my kids.
Clearly, her son's an Army officer, her other son runs a brewery. They're all good leaders.
Yeah, and also I did a lot of not-for-profit stuff and led some referendums and did things like that. Ran a few swim teams, sports groups, and things like that. And yeah, just letting people go and do whatever they needed, whatever they'd signed up to do as a volunteer, however they wanted to do it without, they'd have a report or something, but just go do it, and report back at the end of the project. It empowers people. It works better. And don't criticize them. I mean, just, or if you can be constructive or you can be destructive, and just don't be destructive. You don't know all the answers.
And I'm such a similar style of leadership that I have my two sales guys and I let them go sell however they want. I do tell them I'd love for you to use this diction because I want all of us to be on the same page. But I don't want sales calls and go, why'd you say it like that? That's stupid. I don't want you reading from the script. You sell the way you sell. Steve relies on his charms and good looks, and he sells a lot of beer. And when they don't buy it, he goes out to his car and gets a baseball bat. He's 7 foot tall. No, that's his joke. But he's let's talk again. And then they buy the beer anyway. Don, he replies on, he calls himself Don the Legend, right? And he's just, if you see him, it's supposed to be this like godlike thing, like, oh my God, Don the Legend walked in today. You know what I mean? So I'm not going to curb that. I think it's the dumbest thing I've ever heard, but I'm not going to curb that because that's how he likes to sell beer, and a lot of people like it. So I don't want a team of robots. I want a team of individual people that make like a great, crew. We're a motley crew.
Oh dear.
But one thing that I did want to hit on that has kind of been brought up a lot. She said that she ran a lot of charities and we donate a lot. That is one thing I had never been a part of before. Everywhere I ever been was all about money, money, money. She is, you haven't taken a paycheck in 7 years.
Right.
Every time that we make more money, she gives it to us. I think I've gotten 3 pay raises since I've been here. And they might not be huge, but she says, hey, I paid off this loan. I was like, oh, great. You can take that pay raise now. You can take a paycheck. And she goes, no, you guys are working really hard. I'm going to give everybody $200 more a month. I had never been there. She gives more to the world than she's ever taken, ever. Every Wednesday, 20% of our proceeds go to a local charity if the charity just shows up. All you have to do is show up. It's written in our manual that if somebody walks in with a good cause and a charity, we hand them a voucher that's worth a tour and a tasting. That's $80. And it's everywhere. It's everywhere. And at first when I'm sitting there thinking, I have this corporate mindset of, man, you're throwing money away. But then I look back at all the other people that told people when they walked in to go screw off. They weren't getting that really solid base of people that just love their brand. They were getting fly-by-night, people that were coming in, sure, they might have good beer, that's the only reason I'm there. Or I like one of the waitresses, that's the only reason I'm here. Here we have people that, I remember when we were down and out and they sponsored our charity event, or Lisa is one of the greatest people I've ever met. I hear that all the time, and it's because of the way she's run it, and she's never backed down from that, ever. Even when it was dire straits, somebody, and man, I don't know how we're gonna, pay for this or pay for that, or the chiller broke, we need to repair it. Somebody walks in and goes, hey, I have a donation request. Yep, here you go. It was no matter what. Just like we stuck to our guns with the traditional beers, she has never once backed away from giving anything to a charity. We held a beer event, like you had said, the Backyard Brew Fest. We lost money on it. And I was talking to my girlfriend, and I said, I know Lisa's just going to cut him a check anyway and give him a donation. And I walked in, she goes, yeah, I'm just going to give him $500 anyway. And I was like, I know you are. We lost money on it, right? Because it rained all day and nobody wanted to come out. It was horrible. We made the best of it. We had 400 people packed into this little brewery. It was great, but we lost money. You know, and I'm sitting here going, man, I failed you. And she goes, no, people loved it. That is great. You know, we traded beer for marketing, which beer to us is cheap. Marketing is pretty expensive. We'll do that any day of the week. And then I knew she would cut a check for a local charity. And that's just who Lisa is. And it's pretty great. I've never been happier working for someone or for a team. I end the tour with the last thing that I say. The first thing is that we're old, and that dictates everything about us. Last thing is that Lisa runs us, and that dictates everything about us, you know? And I tell people all of our accomplishments, what, you know, I brag about her, and then I just say how happy we are, and that embodies craft beer. I always end with Church Street embodies what it means to be craft beer. And of course, every single time, as is planned, somebody says, well, what do you think it means to be craft beer? It means to give back to your community, stick to your guns, make really good beer, and provide that beer to everybody around you, and in a manner that's, you know, yes, we make money off of it, but you go around and you look at our prices, they're great, and we give so much back. It's not, for us, it's not a money-making scheme, which that's all I ever worked for, and you can just tell the difference, and it's pretty great.
Awesome.
Community thing.
Talk a lot.
That's great.
So I
Here
think
she goes, yeah.
I think you should give them
juicifer?
some little Lucy and
Why don't we just pull
and
the
open
lid
a
down and give her a
juicifer.
juicifer. I'll be right back.
All
You
right.
guys will get the first sneak peek at it.
Okay.
Why not?
Awesome.
Well, we'll just split a 16-ounce can. It won't be a whole beer.
That's great. Yeah. What was I gonna ask? There was something I was thinking of asking, and he
I
gave
know.
his little sermon on craft beer. And I was like, that's the end. That's the episode end.
Yeah, let's
I guess
just
we're
end.
done with that. But, I'm curious about. I was thinking about. You're saying you're like thinking here's what's coming. Not like can we fulfill this order, but here's what's coming. Does that make you? I was thinking of like Goose Island and did you read Barrel Aged Stout selling out? Because when he talks about just how they got like basically like they were overcommitted. They couldn't fulfill all the orders. So
Right.
they're like, what are we're ruining our relationships with people. By like, is this like sort of protecting yourself from that situation by making it more about the brewery and less about the specific beers?
I don't
fulfilling
think so.
orders?
I think we're still going to, we're starting to run into that problem.
Okay.
So we are going to start having to do allocations.
Yeah.
But we don't know, especially with like this beer.
Oh, yeah.
So, but we really kind of don't know how to do it yet. Do you know what I?
Okay.
You
You
know,
haven't-
we don't
you haven't
have
had to do it.
Well,
Yeah.
we haven't
I
had
see.
to do it, and so we're asking them now. Could you order it before we package it? So we package this to order.
Yeah.
And people, if they ignore us, and if
And
I
then they
have
don't
to
get
ask
it,
them again,
you know?
they're not getting it, or they're getting less.
Okay.
But it's all a part of almost retraining them. Really,
Yeah.
that's what it is.
Well, sure,
And so
yeah.
is
But we
for the
need to
longest
have
Here's
an
what we are
idea
now, yeah.
about
Yeah.
how much they want to sell in order to do an allocation.
Yeah.
Because right now, an allocation, it doesn't make any sense. You talk to Bell's, okay, you've got this allocation, we were at a distributor meeting this past week. Goes, this is your allocation right now. And I've asked that if so-and-so, if another distributor doesn't take their whole allocation,
Then
that
you-
it be
yeah.
given to you.
But,
You know,
this,
so-
but this is how it is now. For this beer, you're getting this, whether you like it or not. If you don't pay for it, though, it's gone. I mean, it's going
And
somewhere
if you
else.
don't want it
Yeah.
all, let us know, because somebody
'Cause
else
it's going
does
Somebody else
want
can
it.
take
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
So we are going to have to get to that place with some of our beers.
But that's the really difficult part. It's only
But-
with some of them. So like we're gonna have to treat distributors differently based on what beer we're talking about. Which
And
is
the
very
markets
odd.
are going to have to be treated differently too.
Yeah.
So the Chicago market will be one way, and we're starting to sell in Wisconsin starting next week, and they only want our milk stout, this, and Little Lucy to start with,
Okay.
because they have a lot of lagers up there
Right.
already. and
Yeah,
stuff.
it's German.
So,
It's
but
German
they-
country.
But
yeah.
the particular distributor doesn't have any hazy IPAs
So they're
or a
taking
milk
all of
stout
them.
in
Yeah.
their portfolio, so that's what they took.
Wow. Okay.
Isn't that funny?
Yeah.
And so it's like, really? So a lot of the reason we have 2 batches of juicifers And then
because they're taking half of it, and then Iowa's taking the other half of an entire batch. And so the Chicagoland,
So it's
our two distributors in Chicago. One is brand new and really we're the heavy hitter on their ticket, right? The other one has 190 of us, you know.
Yeah.
So we're kind of lower on the list. So this first one wants everything and anything we can do, but
and
they're
as much
young
as possible.
and they're not as organized. The other one's very organized and very precise, but we're not number one on the list.
Yep.
So we had
getting
to
them to
retrain
even
them.
order.
We've had to retrain them on.
Hey, could you please tell
can
me
you
what
please
you want
order?
with Jucifer?
And when they said, in their head, when they go, it'll be there 3 months from now. Man, they don't sell it quick.
No,
And then when it's not, they're like, what is going on? You know?
Yeah.
And then when we're the only one in their whole portfolio increasing sales this year, they go, all right, so what the hell is going on? You know? And then all of a sudden you start getting treated different. It's like a training.
Yeah.
And then with the other guys, it's not like a training. It's literally, I go in there once a month and I teach them how to sell. Because so many of them are intro level. Like I used to sell Pepsi. Yeah, well, you're selling beer now. You can't just walk in.
Right.
You don't just have, do you not like Coke? Cool, go with
And they
Pepsi.
have a
That's
lot
not it,
of they
you
have a
know?
lot of wines also.
Okay.
They're more wine distributor. So what do you think of Jucifer?
And then you have all these outside
Nice.
markets that are begging for the beer.
Yeah.
I'm gonna see what
Got a lot of
before
aroma.
we talk about it.
Yeah, it's
So this
what?
is 9.2%.
9.2, okay.
It says
No
9
fruit
on there.
juice
It's supposed to be a
added.
little less.
Yeah, no very little lactose added.
Right.
No fruit juice added. So when you bring that to another brewery and you say it's 9.2 hazy IPA, they're going to go, what they do, just add a bunch of mango juice because of the sugar. That's the easy way out, but that's exactly what we did not want to do. All the juice flavor comes from the hops.
Yeah.
And yet it's only 22 IBU, which you guys IBUs, right? Yeah. 22 IBU meaning
Well, because it's all late
real
edition.
low.
It's
It's
all late
late
edition,
edition, so
dry
you're getting all that
hopping.
hoppiness. And this is what if I could tell every beer drinker in the world one thing, it would be, well, one, Church Street's awesome. Two, it would be hoppiness and bitterness are not the same thing.
Right.
Like, look at IBUs. That's really where you need to be. If you don't like bitterness, that's one thing. But don't tell me you don't like coffee and then go get a latte. Because you like coffee. You just don't like strong black coffee with no layers to it.
Right.
Don't tell me you don't like hops when you just don't like bitterness.
Yeah.
You tell me you don't like mango? Well, I love mango. Well, there's a hop called a mango hop. It tastes like mango, dude.
Right.
There's a lemon drop hop that we use in our Brute IPA that tastes like green tea. Are you telling me you don't like green tea? Like, you like hops. Just, it's like wine. You really have to find the grape that you like. You have to find the hop that you like.
Mm-hmm.
The way I did it when I was growing up in my beer knowledge, not actually growing up, but maturing, I guess is a better word.
I was waiting to hear this
I would
story.
drink single hop series. I would drink a Citra hop beer, only Citra hop, and go, I like it. Then I drink Simcoe and go, oh, cat this, I don't like it. You know what I mean? And so then I'd be able to look just like grapes on wine.
Right.
If you like Merlot and it's 100% Merlot, you know if you see Merlot in another bottle, you might like that. I love Zinfandels. I love them. But I don't really like Malbecs. I just don't. So whenever you go to look at blends, you know it's the same exact thing for hops. And if I could tell everybody in the world that, I would, because so many people would fall in love with this beer, but because it's an IPA, they're too scared.
Yeah.
You know?
Hazies are almost changing that. I didn't realize that it was about the lack of bitterness up front. And I think
That's all it is.
Because that's what illuminated when we were talking to Brian. He was like,
And Brian's making beer here now.
Yeah, we saw
which is
him.
why he was.
Okay, so
we
you saw him here.
talked
Yeah.
to him a month and a half ago, and I'm playing a show at his fire in 3 weeks.
Nice.
So that's what it was just funny to see him. But yeah, he mentioned he doesn't like bitterness. And the hazies are, it's all back end, which is why he likes it.
Yeah, well, this is not as super hazy as a lot of
No.
bar. You can,
Not a lot of lactose.
Yeah, it's not like opaque.
Well, and
But
you have to
it's-
think.
It has that quality.
I didn't pour the bottom part yet either, so it's been sitting in a
Fair
cooler.
enough, fair enough.
Yeah, you twist it and you pour it a little bit more. It'll become a little bit more hazy.
Yeah.
But you're right, it just doesn't have that lactose added.
more.
Not much more at all, actually. It doesn't have that lactose added. It doesn't have a lot of.
You might get it a little hazier as we
Yeah.
make it. But
Yeah.
But yeah, it's
But
it's
it's
a real beer.
the
That's how I
aroma.
sell it.
Right.
And the
It's
smell.
a beer. If Church Street comes out with it, we used to say, and this is going back to how we marketed ourselves, we used to say we're a German lager brewery. But then our Belgian IPA won 4th best in the world. All right, now we're a European style
European,
brewery, right? But then our hazy IPA is the second highest rated in all of Illinois. All right, we're a we just make good beer. You know what I mean? So we just kind of sell ourselves more as whatever we do is going to be traditional, true to the style, whatever the style is. So we don't tag ourselves along with any one style, but whatever the style is that we're doing, it's going to be exactly how it's supposed to taste. You know, like our barley wine. I don't know why the hell we came out with it in July, because it's like 14% barley wine that no one is drinking.
That's what I asked. I said, Chuck, why didn't you make our Kolsch? Why didn't we make 2 barrels of Kolsch? Why do we have a barrel?
One guy, he was sitting out on the patio, he came in, he was drinking our Cronin beer, and he goes, do you have anything similar? And I said, well, we have a barley wine. He goes, all right, yeah, I love barley wines. So he came back and went, what'd you do to me, man? What'd you do to me? I'm like, nothing, dude. He's like, that's too much, man. It's like, what's the alcohol in it? And I was like, 14. He goes, oh my God, my wife's gonna kill me. And that's like exactly how he was. I'm like, dude, chill out, have some water, drive home in 30 minutes. He's like, breadsticks. I'm like, on the house, just take them. They're on the house, just take them. But then he came back and I was like, oh, you wanted the barley wine? He goes, man, screw you, dude. Like, I'm not doing that again. Right. But it's so good. It's just in the summer. That's you, dude. That is not what you want. You know, you sit
That's
on
what
the
I
patio,
said when they were making it. I said, "Are you sure you want to make a barley wine?"
And he makes such a good Kolsch. He makes an amazing Kolsch.
Yeah,
we were both sitting there going, "I love Kolsch. I love them." I was like, "Make that." And he goes, I already bought all the grain for the barley wine." I'm like, "All right, whatever. We'll have it next winter too."
Yeah, right.
Even though this is a small batch, and I love it. They're like, "Hey, you still got barley wine back there?" Yeah, no shit, we still have barley wine back there. They still got that Doppelbock too. Yeah, no shit, it's 90 degrees out. Nobody's drinking that. Are you crazy?
Sit for a little while, yeah.
Oh yeah, and that's the great thing about them is, and I always tell people, there's another thing we had to retrain our distributors on. They'd sit there and go, oh, we don't want that beer, it's old. And I would literally screenshot the word lager in the definition and send it to them. Or the Google translation from German, which means to store away. Sommerlager is where you store away your kids for the summer. It's summer camp. That's literally what they call it.
Sommerlager?
Yeah, Sommerlager.
That's awesome.
And so I sent it to him, and the guy finally broke down and said, just send me a whole list of all of your beers and how long they last. And then he sent back just one word, bullshit. Because there's some on there that were like 2 years, and he's like, no freaking way. I'm like, dude, I promise you, that beer will be better in 2 years than it is right now. We sometimes purposely age our beers. We had a half keg of Maybach that we saved for 7 months, and when we put it back on, the staff drank all of it before we could even get it to the customer. It was that freaking good.
It's one of our favorite styles, and we make one batch of it a year.
Awesome. Seems like a good place to wrap up.
I know.
Okay.
That's good.
Well, we're out of beer, right?
We're out of beer.
The beer too. So that wraps up this episode. You've been listening to 2 Beers and a Podcast with Brad and Mike.
If you like what you heard, be sure to do the liking, subscribing, and rating. If you have an idea for a topic and pairing, message at 2BeersPod on Twitter or Instagram. And, oh yeah, that's right. And if you want to learn more about our video, web, and social media marketing services, visit 2beersandapodcast.com or email at 2beerspod. No, 2beerspod@gmail.com.
All right. Until next time, keep telling your story.
Keep drinking, keep tweeting. Thank you.
Cool.
Thank you.